Morning.
Hello.
Good
Happy
morning.
Thursday.
Happy Thursday.
Happy Baby Friday. Happy Baby Friday. That's what I like
No,
to call Thursday.
Here we are. We made it this far. We can do another couple of days. We're good.
Baby Friday.
Baby Friday.
I like that.
Well, Colin and Carol, it is time for Thriving Thursday, which is even better than Baby Friday for a lot of reasons. So today we're going to be talking. First of all, I just want to welcome you to the show today. And if you are tuning in wherever you are, whether you're finding us live right now, or we're in the car traveling with you, maybe, or we're on your run, or doing your evening dishes, it's really great to have you join us. A couple things that we want to remind you of is that coming up on March 28th, we have another free 90-minute workshop about the future being the future's whole human connection. And we had such a fantastic workshop last time, and we're looking forward to this one coming up. So you're going to want to check that out. It is at 9 o'clock Pacific, 11 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock Atlantic time. If you're on Turtle Island, and you can find out more over at Whole Human Coaching. But for now, speaking of whole human coaching and speaking of coaching, today we have a really fun topic because it's something that we love talking about with our clients and together. And it is about what is coaching. So we actually, when we were talking about a title for this, we're like, what is going to get down to the heart of how people may perceive it? How sometimes when we're working with clients, some of the things that come up with them. And so today we're talking about is coaching. Is it woo-woo or worth it? And so does it actually help? And what is it? And is it measurable? And how can it help our career or business, if so? So I think it's really important for us to kick off this conversation with, in the spirit of coaching, with some inquiry around a little bit about possibly, Carol, if you could help us with just a little bit about the history of coaching. You are a master coach, literally, and you have been a coach for many years. Can you give us some insight around that before we dig in?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, looking back at the history of coaching, I mean, coaching as a profession has been done in professional sports and in areas like that. And that is often what people think of when they think of a coach. But in my experience, a lot of this began in the personal development world. And Werner Erhard was one of the first people who put together a serious personal development program. It was known as EST back in the day, and then moved on to become Landmark Education. And the first real coaches that I ever met who were certified, who became certified, they were some of the earliest master certified coaches, came from this background. They were deeply trained in personal development. So that's where life coaching began as the first element of what coaching was. And it got such a bad rap, really, because there were everybody and their brother put out a sign that said they were a coach, and they were coaching people in areas that they should never have been touching. They were offering tons of advice. They were literally the caricature that we saw on Saturday Night Live. If there's episodes where they just malign coaches because there was such a terrible way that it began. So it's become far more professional. I've been coaching for almost 20 years. The last 25 years, organizations like the International Coaching Federation, the European Coaching and Mentoring Organization has really worked to create boundaries for what coaching is, guidelines, ethics, professional standards. And it's worked to some degree. More people know what coaching is, but there's still what we've discovered, even here we are, 2024, engaged with an organization where people have signed up for coaching. And Colin, you had someone who walked in and said,
What's this all about? Yeah.
What is this all about? Yeah.
What are we doing? What is this all about? Where do we start? But Carol, I mean, you speak of the history, right? But you were talking about an article, or not an article, a reportage recently where the industry was also sort of
Oh, yeah.
dragged through the mud, and in
Mhm.
modern
Modern
times,
times.
right?
I think it
So,
was like a year or 2 ago, or not even 2 years ago, Marketplace on CBC did an expose on life coaches, and they literally shadowed someone, and then they had secret recordings of what the coach was saying. Now, to be fair, this was not a trained and certified coach. This was someone
okay.
who had done that same thing,
Okay.
put out their shingle and said, "I'm a coach." And they
Mm.
were offering health and related things like diagnosing
Oh my
psychological
God.
disorders, offering advice in that
Yeah.
realm with no education or background, and they deserve to be exposed.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Now,
Okay.
I wrote a scathing letter saying, "Hold on, there is a whole other aspect of this which you have not covered. I train coaches professionally, and so what about this?" And they wrote me a very nice letter that they were going to look into that part. But it didn't get the press because doesn't have the sizzle.
Right.
Because
Right.
woo-woo
Right.
is what people think of.
And exposing
Right. Right.
charlatan cells.
Yeah. So we are confronted still in
Yes.
2024 with this problem, right? That this image of coaching as being woo woo, or full of sort of unqualified individuals, when we know otherwise, right? I
Yeah.
mean, credentialing with the International Coaching Federation is vigorous,
Yeah,
and
Right.
it's not easy. So
no. And there's a code of ethics and a standard for how people do coach.
mhm.
But the interesting part is, I think what brought us together, the whole idea of whole human coaching, is that that too can be restricting.
Mhm.
That there is some way that we need to be able to be professional and engaged with all of who a
Yeah.
person is.
Yeah.
So we've got, what do we have? We have a lack of understanding. We
Mhm.
have misconceptions, I guess, that are out there. We've got sort of anecdotal evidence,
Yeah.
and we've got, in many instances, a lack of standardization if people aren't signed up to the International Coaching Federation or other regulatory bodies. So um, if we move on from that, and what are the benefits? What are we seeing in terms of how this can be beneficial? And what is it, I guess? Maybe we have to answer that.
Ah,
Given,
let's
Mhm.
how do you describe it? Let's start there. What do you say if you're introducing yourself to
Mhm.
to someone?
well, I say that, well, first of all, obviously it's a confidential space and it's a non-judgmental space, and I really describe it as having an objective sounding board for
Mm,
dissecting or deconstructing some of the narratives that might be going on in your head around a certain issue or around an intersection in time, where um, you need somebody objective to help you deconstruct that
Mhm.
and reconstruct
mm,
a different approach.
right.
Mhm.
And the reason that it's the reason we created whole human coaching is because we see that because of the world we live in today and the complexity of it, that um, yeah, what am I trying to say? That we help people see their lives, their professional lives and their personal lives, and how to make them better and improve and
Yeah.
Yeah.
excel and
Yeah.
thrive. Ultimately, I guess, right? It's
Yeah.
the idea is to get to thriving. So
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that echoes, Colin, what the ICF uses as a definition. So I'm just going to read it because I've
Okay.
got it in front of me. So it says, defines coaching as partnering with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential.
Oh,
Hmm.
okay. Great.
Yeah.
So,
So
Yeah. One of the
I
things that
passed
I've
the
been
test.
using, I'm a storyteller. And so I love incorporating story even in anything that I'm doing. But when I've been having my first session with clients, I've been telling them, like, when I was a kid, my mom had a little prism that hung in our kitchen window.
mm,
And as the sun moved across the sky, the prism refracted the light onto different areas across the kitchen wall, and the cat would
mm,
often chase the light. But anyways, and I said that coaching is is like that, where we're holding this up and we're holding this situation that may be perceived as not having an answer, or being, and we may be so focused on the problem that if we were to slightly shift it through asking different questions, if we were to
Mm.
be more expansive in our thinking, what will we see differently, so we can explore possibilities. And
Right.
everything is always predicated on the fact that you are whole. Where you
Mhm.
are is where you are when you show up to this conversation. And Colin, you were mentioning that in an earlier
Mhm.
conversation that we had, that we always talk with our
Sure.
clients, saying we are starting from a common space here where we
Right.
know that you are whole. You don't lack
Mhm.
anything. This is us we're co-creating something, but really it's about this space that we're sharing with you right now.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
love that idea of the crystal and the light that you were speaking about, because I often use that as well. It's simply, you are whole, and all we might be doing is shining light into a corner of the room or a part of where
Mhm.
you are that you might not see. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
this idea of lighting up an area to help you see better
Mhm.
is I think a really positive one. I also use the metaphor of, kind of taking away opaque lenses, right?
Oh,
So
yes.
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
might not see clearly now, but we just have to help you remove
Right.
those lenses
Yeah.
Mhm.
that might be yeah, clouding your vision.
Mhm.
Yeah, that perspective shift is such a wonderful experience for people.
Mhm.
Because, anyone who has done professional coaching knows that there's this moment sometimes when you're connecting with a client and the light bulb goes on, and you can
Mhm.
see it. Everything shifts in their whole body. They become
Mhm.
aware of something they had no access to before that. And that
Right.
moment of clarity that happens in a coaching conversation is truly magical. And it often goes beyond what is explained by the techniques of being a coach.
Mhm.
And I think that is where some people think that there is the woo-woo, because if you're a good coach, as far as I'm concerned, you're an intuitive coach.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
you're trusting your gut. You don't
Mhm.
know where the next question's gonna come from. You aren't on a standard, "I'm gonna
Right.
ask this next" kind of protocol, because you're using all of your senses
Yeah.
in what you do, Colin, which is sense making, right?
Mhm.
Right, right. I think that's a really important point, Carol, because um, I think a lot of the time, there are so many models out there, right? And I've seen a lot of times that coaches can follow them too rigidly,
Mhm.
and not get to those aha moments. But I mean,
Yes.
that's another conversation.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
that's a,
And
a rabbit
I
hole we
think
don't need to go down.
curiosity too, right? Like, um, I one of the fantastic things about when we show up to a conversation as coaches is that we are holding the curiosity, because our client may not yet have the capacity to be curious about the
Yeah.
situation, but we can come in because we're not attached to the
Right.
backstory and the narrative around it. We can hold the
Hmm.
curiosity for them and almost
Mhm.
lend them that curiosity about the situation. That to me
Sure.
is part of the magical part of coaching, I think,
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yes.
entering into that space in terms of curiosity.
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
sure.
And those
So,
are Go ahead.
well, please, you go ahead, Carol.
Well, I was just gonna say there's a lot of evidence as well. It's one thing that the professional coaching organizations have
Mhm.
done the work, the research to
Right.
turn out what is the return on investment.
Mhm.
Right.
So, Colin, you had some of that listed.
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of a list even to look at, to think of before. So you have the benefits of improved decision making, increased productivity,
Mhm.
enhanced leadership skills, improved executive presence, better self-awareness, and
Mhm.
increased retention and engagement. So what does that mean in terms of ROI? Well, PricewaterhouseCoopers has done not investigative work, but researched this and come up with a 7 times ROI on initial investment in coaching. And another
Mm.
study called the Metrics Global found that executive coaching resulted in an ROI of between 529% and 788%.
Wow.
So,
Oh.
um, yeah, massive return
Mhm.
on investment.
Mhm.
And a couple of other bits of data that I've got in front of me. Coaching can lead to a 70% increase in individual performance,
Mm,
a 50% increase in team performance, and a
right,
48 increase in organizational performance. And
right.
that has that impacts things like customer service,
Sure it does.
enhanced relationships with the team, reduction in
Mhm.
stress levels. So um, I think we've just dispelled that it's not woo woo, but
Yeah.
but um,
But you're right, it isn't, and it is, and that's the I
yes,
think
Yeah.
right.
that is what early on what I was taught, that's the art and the science.
It's
Yeah.
that magic
Sure.
and
Like,
logic, right?
it
That
Mhm.
is,
that balance of magic and logic,
it
and somewhere in
is
between,
so
you have
much.
those aha moments, right?
Mhm. So
That's
we
why I
know go ahead.
that's why I think it's so important to deviate from the models, right? To and
Mhm.
those sort of, I've got the book, right? Oh, what's the next question? It's like,
Right.
no, no,
Mm, yeah.
don't go there.
And yet new
Mm.
coaches need to. So I
Sure.
do a lot of coach training and having those guardrails
You're
of
right.
this is what we do next and this is the
Yeah,
competency
Yeah.
that I'm exhibiting is really
you're right.
worthwhile to embed that in. And that's why I think both of you are such good coaches.
Mm.
Not that, I'm not going to take credit for it because I did train Crystal, but I have and mentored. But I think
Mhm.
what happens with really good coaches is they take those basics and they expand and grow. Because what we do at Whole Human Coaching is we don't stop with just this is how it's done. We research and
Right.
we educate ourselves and we
Right.
continue to learn and we look at the current trends and what's happening and we bring all of that back to our clients as
Yeah.
well.
Mhm.
'Cause it's a complex world.
It is
These
a
are
Mm.
complex world, and
complex
we
challenges.
are it's not going to get any less complex. So
Mhm.
the way the path forward to kind of future proof yourself and your organization is to be honest about what you're going to need. What kind of tools are you going to need? Are your people going to need to be able to navigate these
Yes.
more the complexities of the complexities?
Yes, no
Right?
kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm curious then, what do you think, um, either of you, how can we, when people are thinking about, let's say, for example, someone is either thinking about investing in coaching for themselves or for their organization, and when we hear those numbers, Colin, that you were
Mhm.
talking about, what does that actually mean? Like, how can we measure that? Because we do that with our clients, but let's just like kind of pull back the curtain a little bit and help people understand the ways that those can be measured.
Mhm.
Well, whenever we start any coaching engagement, we always kind of do a, a a survey of where you are today, right?
Mhm.
And looking at the wheel of life and all of the elements that make up you as a human, and how you're navigating this world. So it's great to start and see where you start with, and then you can see where you end, and you can really measure that.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but I mean, we could dive into so many elements like retention,
Yes.
Yeah.
if you're stressed, there's so many benefits to not having massive turnover and having and um, happy,
Equipped,
fulfilled, and thriving, equipped,
thriving. Mhm.
staff, because
Yes.
that impacts everything from
Yeah.
your customers and your customer satisfaction, and yeah, so much more.
Mhm.
Toxicity creates cultural
Yeah.
cohesion,
All
right?
those things. Yes.
There's so many
And
measurements.
those can be measured because you can get how people are
Right.
feeling at the beginning of a coaching engagement and how they are at the end.
Yeah.
And the truth is we do that contracting in every single session as well.
Mm.
Because we begin as a professional coach, you begin with where do you want to go? So that
Mhm.
in each hour or half hour that you get with someone, you also know where they want to get to.
Yeah.
So it's measurable in a 30-minute or 45-minute session too. So
Mhm.
there's always these ways to continue to look and re and it isn't really revealing behind the curtain because this is how it should all
This
be
is
done.
really hard. Yeah.
So maybe this is the distinction is that if
Mm.
you're speaking to someone who doesn't have these kind of approaches
Yeah.
to, well, we want to know, we want to be able to measure both in this session, but over the whole contract that we have with you, how it's working for
Mhm.
you,
Right.
Yeah. And you
because
deserve
that's
to
us being
know.
professional.
Yeah, you deserve to know, in everything else that we invest in, there are ways that things can be measured, and although that looks different it still is measurable, and it clearly is measurable because we've been able to do it with, and even it's so interesting because when we do part of the measurement is almost like an inventory that we do with people at the beginning and at the end, and seeing those numbers change, and as they reflect on things is always so rewarding, from a personal note as a coach, to see that change happen, and to see people have that agency and recognition of being able to show for themselves how they've actually changed is really an exciting part of what coaching has to offer.
So I think when we come down to it, it's both woo-woo and worth it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Quite literally. Yeah. The magic and the logic.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, team, thank you for another fun conversation today, and for a little bit of history behind where coaching came from, and giving us some insights around that. If you want to find out more about our work, you can find us, as we say, over at Whole Human Coaching. We also have all of these episodes. They're all available on our website, so you can dig back into our archives. We're getting quite a resource library built up in there, which is really exciting. And don't forget, if you like this episode, to share it and even leave a review, which would be so fantastic. And if you want to find out more about how we work and the types of people that we work with, why not just reach out to us? We'd love to have a conversation. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Everybody, take care.